Today, we have gotten a brand new clip for 2025's Walking with Dinosaurs. The clip is titled T-Rex Ambush, and it follows a Tyrannosaurus as it stalks an Infernal Dragon, while simultaneously being watched by Clover, the orphan Triceratops, and basically the main dinosaur we'll be following in that specific episode. I think that it looks pretty good. There's a decent amount to talk about in this little clip that I just want to talk about, mostly just about the designs, really. And so, yeah, let's do that. So this right here is one of the first notable shots that we get of the Tyrant Reptile King itself. This is probably the best look that we've gotten of T-Rex so far, and I think that it looks great. It looks downright fantastic. Say that again, am I right? So the head shape, I think they nailed that, which it mostly just follows the shape of the skull, so that certainly does make sense. I really like the way that these horns up here look, or these little crests, whatever you want to call them, these little structures set above the eyes, like the post-orbital horn, and like the kind of like where you get into more so a lacrimal horn up here, as it leads more so into a little bit of a defined nasal ridge. I think that looks really good. And I think the whole texture looks fantastic as well. These very, very small scales. We do have skin impressions of T-Rex, and they are very tiny scales that from a distance, I've mentioned this several times, but from the distance would have made the skin look pretty smooth. And that's what it looks like right here. The ear is set in the correct spot too. They would have been set like right behind where the skull is right here, or like the edge of the skull. So that looks good. That looks really good. And I really like the large scales that we have right here. Like basically on the head, you get a whole bunch of like different sized scales that was pretty likely for the animal. Most reconstructions, you'll see like large scales around the fenestra right here, and the fenestra having smaller scales. Like they increasingly get smaller and smaller as you reach the center of that, which I think is a pretty cool detail. You'll also notice that its eyes are facing forward, which is very common in predatory animals, which Tyrannosaurus Rex was a predatory animal. Their eyes do face forward like ours do, which means that if it's looking at you, it is looking at you. Lakota reference. But there are also some really cool details here, like the scarring present right here. Animals do often have a lot of scarring because they live in nature, especially predatory animals that likely kind of would fight each other. I suppose is the best way of putting it. Who knows how this Rex got these scars, but I think it's a very cool detail. I think this one is supposed to represent a tooth mark, which could possibly be from another Tyrannosaur, which is a really cool detail because there is a lot of evidence of face biting in Tyrannosaurs, especially Tyrannosaurus itself. So it's likely that that was a very common thing to happen. In fact, that could be what this scar is, and what this scar is, and what this scar is. Like maybe another Tyrannosaur just bit onto its snout. Very cool detail, and I love to see it here. The lips are also a very nice touch. They kind of jut out a little bit more, which is different from what we've seen in most portrayals. If I'm remembering it properly, I think Prehistoric Planet had lips that were like the top lips were in like they had the same depth as the bottom lips, so it didn't really overlap. I like this portrayal right here because it kind of like takes into account the T-Rex did have pretty big teeth. So it'd have like larger lips to accommodate that. So, a lot to say for this image alone, but it's a very cool image. The Infernal Dragon is really cool. There's not much I can say about it. We don't really know a lot about Infernal Dragon because it's a very fragmentary animal, which is why I think that it's interesting that they are portraying it here. I mean, when I first saw the first teaser for the trailer, essentially, I thought that this was going to be a Quetzalcoatlus, but it turns out it's a more obscure Hell Creek Asdarkid. Anyway, it does have like a lot of those Asdarkid traits, like the skull very much looks like an Asdarkid skull. The crest looks really cool. I like all of this added detail down here. It kind of looks like a turkey waddle, which I think is pretty cool. And all of the little filamentous feathers basically going on. I know that many people call them pycnofibers, but they are essentially the same structure. The colors are also really cool too. And yeah, I think it's another mighty fine portrayal. Now there is also Clover herself, or this kind of looks like Sarah from The Land Before Time, mostly because of those colors. Clover is the one that we will be following in this episode. The format that this episode is taking is that we basically follow, like we're going to be focusing on a single dinosaur and we'll follow their journey. And if I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of what we're going to be unpacking in these episodes are based off of actual fossil finds. Which is pretty cool. It's kind of like Big Al, like the Ballad of Big Al, where you have like a single specimen that acted as the inspiration for a whole documentary. That's the format that we're taking with this. And so it allows each episode to have a little bit more focus, which I'm all for that. I think that that's a fine approach to have. Anyway, Clover here, she very much looks like a baby Triceratops. We do have baby Triceratops skulls, and this is what they look like. They have a very reduced snout. Their horns are, of course, very reduced, but they do start coming in at a very early age. You can actually see that in the fossils. They're just very small, and of course, they curve backwards. They also do have these epiccipitals on the frill that are very sharp and pointed when they're around this age, but they start to flatten out the more the animal grows. I also really like the way that the skin looks. Very rough texture. So I think that Clover has a very good design. Also, I think that the quality of the CGI in her right here, especially in this shot, I think looks great. Now, we also do get some shots of like the full T-Rex. Looks good. You know, it has the whole T-Rex shape. I think that they did a good job at that. Look how big Infernal Dragon is. Yeah, it is crazy. That is crazy. But the coloration is kind of reminiscent to the original Walking with Dinosaurs. It is slightly different. It has like more so a lighter gray coloration, and I don't think that throat is as red as the Walking with Dinosaurs version. I mean, we have this shot right here, and it might look like it has some red. It also has some red back here. Just kind of like, you know, just blended into the skin, adds a lot of extra texture. And of course, the red above the animal's eyes, which is likely a display thing. But this is a fantastic bulk. Like the bulk right here is pretty accurate, I'd say. Huge leg right here because it had a lot of leg muscles. I like how beefy that neck is, and it just has a lot of bulk throughout the whole body, and also some more scarring all over the place, this poor animal. If I were to have one gripe with it, it would be the lack of maybe some sparse feathers. Now, of course, that's not a requirement because we don't have confirmation that Tyrannosaurus had feathers. However, Albertosaurus in the very same show does have sparse feathers, the type of feathers that are likely for a large theropod dinosaur. T-Rex, if it were to have feathers, it would be like the Albertosaurus style feathers. So I wish that it wasn't completely featherless. And maybe it's not. Maybe we just can't see them. Like maybe it's a prehistoric planet situation where they're just so hair-like or sparse and hair-like that you could barely see them. But looking at most of the shots that we have, I'm not really seeing much. Like even that I think is just the pixels. I don't think that's really any fuzzy feathers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have a completely bald T-Rex. And again, that is fine. But I think that we could apply the same. Here, let me pull up a picture. I just don't think it would be too crazy to apply this same method right here. You know, just very, very sparse feathers. Of course, the entire animal is not feathered. It doesn't look like a giant pigeon or anything like that. Because, as I mentioned before, we do have skin impressions of T-Rex. Those skin impressions do lack feathers. So we know that at the very least, there was a huge portion of T-Rex that was featherless. But that does not mean that it lacked feathers. In fact, it's likely that it still retained feathers. So seeing the fact that this is Albertosaurus and it's in the same family as T-Rex, you'd think that they would apply the same thing, and I'm just a little bit sad that they didn't. Certainly not a deal breaker. I still think that the design looks great, but it would have just been a nice detail. Like I like the fact that that detail is present on the prehistoric planet version, even if they are so small. And so, not apparent that you would probably miss them. In fact, I think most people have. But, it's still cool that they included it. But I do think that is all I have to say about this quick little clip. So I think it's great. I am still very much looking forward to this documentary. It will be releasing, I believe, May 25th for the UK on BBC iPlayer, I believe. And I think the 16th of June in the US on PBS. So for us in the States, we will have to wait a little bit longer than those over the pond. Which is a little bit unfortunate. Like biology, of course, he lives over there, so he'll be getting it a little bit sooner than me and Lakota, which is unfortunate. But when it does come out, of course, I will be making content on it just a little bit later than when it first officially comes out. But yeah, be sure to let me know what you guys think. Do you like this trailer? I mean, I will say this again: the CGI is definitely not on the same level as Prehistoric Planet. But that is in no way a deal breaker because this CGI still looks good. Just not the same level as Prehistoric Planet. I do completely acknowledge that. I just don't think that this should be completely hand waved away just because it's not on that same level. I still think that the CGI looks pretty good. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.